that leaves room for you, my listener, with your T-shirt, your open shirt, or your regular bow tie to be the smartest person in your dress wear, your costume category. My costume is always the same. I always look exactly like my bow tie. Sometimes looks good. I have one on this morning, kind of a shabby knot, I'm afraid to say, but my wife Jeanette said this shirt and this tie, and she dictated to me, Jeanette, what I had to wear, and I'm relieved because yesterday I was a real clown, and I'm glad that you were not watching me on YouTube, though we are there on YouTube at Hot News Talk Radio, and on Facebook at the Nooga Radio page, Nooga Radio on Facebook, live there. Also on your smartphone, just get the TuneIn Radio app and just make us your favorite Nooga Radio. I want to hear good things about Chattanooga. We're getting warnings about Chattanooga. We're huffing and puffing about local economy and suggesting that there need to be reforms in Nashville, of which we're not hopeful to be effectuated, let's just say, right? They're not likely to happen. And so as we hear about these things and express our dissatisfaction with the status quo, we want to hear some good things. And so I have with me now Lori Wheeler Rose. She is in the restaurant business. She's been in the South for almost all of her adult life. She's a Hoosier from Indiana and has been only 5 weeks in Chattanooga. So when I met her, I'm always trying to meet people and just asking them about who they are and what they do and do they like where they are. She said, well, she's been here for 5 weeks, having lived twice before in Tennessee and passed through Tennessee and the Chattanooga area many times, and most recently in Tuscaloosa. So, Lori, what is it about Chattanooga that you can say, why did you move here? What is it that you really like about Chattanooga that somehow my listener might be cheered to hear in your view, as it were, through fresh eyes in Chattanooga? What's the story, Lori Rose?
Well, my life changed about 5 years ago. My marriage come to an end, and my son was moved away from home. So I had a opportunity to start over with a clean slate, and I chose Chattanooga, Tennessee, because I've always loved this state. I've always been drawn to the eastern side of Tennessee. It's just breathtaking. The mountains are absolutely breathtaking. Sometimes when I was driving through, it'd be hard to stay on the road because I'd just be so captivated by the mountains. And, you have your dam and your Tennessee River and the whole Chattanooga area. It's just dynamic. There's so many opportunities here. And I'm a little surprised about the news about the economy because it seems like to me the economy is going in the right direction here.
Well, what news are you hearing that's darkening the horizon? What are you hearing?
Well, I thought I just heard you say something about Nashville, or just spills over to here. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe I made that up. But anyway, I do love, and then I homeschooled my son also. I have that in common with you. Kindergarten through 12th grade, we would come to Chattanooga because the tourist attractions here, they're not just educational. I mean, they're historical. And a lot of things about Chattanooga, like the Ruby Falls, is a natural phenomenon. I would be claustrophobic down there below the mountain, but I loved it. It was just breathtaking as well. And I love the farmers market. I love the Whole Foods places that they have around here. So there's just so many things that interest me anyway.
Now, your son Ira is 24 years old. He's left home, and you say he was homeschooled. What attractions did he like the most as a student? What most thrilled young Ira when he was in your care and being trained by you?
Well, I think he was influenced heavily by my opinion of things too, but I think there was something about Chattanooga that drew him as well. And he was raised in the country on a farm, but he loves the city, so to speak. He likes to be in the midst of things.
Well, how is having lived on a farm, given you a perspective that makes it easier for you to appreciate Chattanooga? What about the farm background has helped your viewing of this city?
Well, certainly. I like the country. I actually prefer the country. But if I had to choose a city to live in, it would be Chattanooga. It doesn't feel like a city. It's got a real small town feel to it. And the people here are some of the friendliest people that I've ever met. I had an incident when I was a child. One of my uncles married a lady from Tennessee, and I always thought, these are the nicest people. I have ever met. They're always smiling. They're always happy. And it really made an impression on me. I think even then, it made a strong impression about Tennessee to me.
I've had some dealings, Lori Rose, with Northerners, and I have some. I have foreign blood, very very strange extraction. My mother's Swiss. She is the daughter of a federal congressman from Zurich, and then my father, even stranger background. He's from Sudbury, Massachusetts. Very very alien place from Sudbury, Mass. He's deceased now. Northerners are, in a way, they're much more direct, especially people from New York. They're much more direct. They speak their mind. If you're in sales around here, as I am, it's hard to get sometimes a clear answer. The owner will say, well, let me think about that and get back to me. They won't say no because they don't want to offend you. In a way, that it's kind of a function of grace. I think God's grace in the South.
Mm-hmm.
In the North, though, they'll say, get the hell out of my store and don't come back. and they don't mean to say don't ever come back, but they're just saying it for now. Right. And you can go back 2 weeks later and they're, oh, hey, they'll consider your pitch again, maybe.
Right.
But they have a very rough, direct manner in Yankee world. I almost like that better. How would you evaluate that directness versus grace?
You're speaking to the choir, because after being in the South for so long, Georgia, Florida, Tennessee, Alabama, I would go home and I'd say to my mom and my sisters, you people are rude up here. I just don't know why people are so abrupt and so abrasive. Life is too short to speak that abruptly to people. And that's one of the things that I love about all the southern states.
Well, I guess what I'm asking you to do, Lori Rose, is kind of explain what this grace is, because when you don't want to offend someone, you don't want to say no, and you really do want to try to help that person. That person's trying to sell you something that you really, let's say, don't need. And you don't want to offend the person yet. You're not really to buy the product yet. And so you kind of string that person on. Is grace somehow dishonest in the South? Are people, because they're so gracious, are they somehow not truthful?
No.
Lori? And they are in the North?
I think it's a wonderful Christian concept, a Christian principle, to be kind and don't speak roughly to somebody if you don't have to, and take your time to explain something, or just always leave things in a positive light if you possibly can. Well,
I see what you're saying. I was dealing recently with a person who had just moved here from New York, and we were thinking of doing business together. And what struck me about this individual was very direct, kind of brusque questions of me. That somehow I'm not sure. I didn't want this person to suck up to me and so on. But I somehow felt that it was just too close, too proximate, too familiar, and somehow the time was so short you couldn't put it another way. It was very direct, and you're right. Here in the South, there's much more. I'd say there's much more of God's grace in the South, but perhaps the cost to that would be maybe the South is less efficient, maybe the South is less prosperous, than the North. What do you think about that? Is that possible, or what do you see?
I don't know. I think it balances out. I do. I think the South has a lot of successful industries and success here and thriving economies.
Now, right now, Lori Wheeler Rose, you work in a restaurant. What do you do in the restaurant, and is that your background in your calling in the work you've done in the marketplace?
I went to school to be a legal secretary and office administration, and I would like to be doing that because I went to school later in life and to get those skills. But Panera was fantastic. They hired me. They're always hiring, and I started as an associate, but I'm being cross-trained very quickly to operate anywhere in the store, wherever they need you. They're a great group of people. So, but I would like to explore finding something in my own field. And, if someone had needed a place to fill, they could send me an email at lori.wheeler20@gmail.com.
Lori.wheeler20, numeral 20, lori.wheeler20@gmail.com.
Yes, sir.
Now, that would be possibly, Lori, someone who runs a law office, maybe. What kind of offices are you thinking about?
Well, I worked for a divorce attorney in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, so it was never boring, and it was very interesting.
What kind of work did you do there?
I did a lot of his processing, his, submitting his paperwork and things at the courthouse, and the filing and typing up the documents, the legal documents for the divorce that was taking place
Did
at
you
the
have,
time.
do you have paralegal training? Lori?
Basic paralegal training. Yes. I didn't go to school to be a paralegal, but I did a lot of paralegal duties.
Well, you know, UTC has a program for that, I believe.
Oh.
Maybe Chat State does as well.
Mm-hmm.
Have you had the time yet in your 5 weeks here to look into that, Lori?
No, I haven't had time yet to check into that, but I might do so.
Well, let me ask you this: what about Chattanooga do you see as a disadvantage? Are there any problems that you, with fresh eyes, generally in favor of Chattanooga, that you see about life here, or about institutions here, or maybe government? What has come to your notice as a worker in a restaurant, a woman living on your own, that you might want to fill my listener in on?
Well, nothing has come to my notice at this time, but I think people are just very welcoming. And I've been, welcomed in every way at this Panera, and the employees that work there. I quickly become part of their Panera family. So I don't see any problems at this time. I might have to come back in another year or so, and if I've picked up on something at that time.
Well, this is David Tulis. Thanks for joining us. We're at AM 1240 and FM 92.7 Nooga Radio. Also on out of Ottawa at 95.3 HD4. And I cover local economy and the free market in Chattanooga and beyond, and argue that you should love your neighbor and buy local. You could say it's a kind of the backside of Donald Trump's economic nationalism. If you're a localist, you share vulnerabilities, you could say, with the nationalist. You know, the nationalist says you should buy American, you should buy your steel for your pipeline that goes illegally through Indian territory. You should buy it in America, and so on. If you're a localist, you think, well, let's see if we can buy things locally, made locally, because we want to have a kind of personal ethic in our economy. And we're here talking with Lori Rose. She works at a restaurant here in Hickson, and she's from Indiana, and has been many years living in the South. Lori Wheeler Rose, give my listener your email again in case he might need you for some gig in his law office or other kind of office. Go ahead.
It's Laurie, LAURIE Wheeler, WHEELER 20@gmail.com.
And listen, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
This is David Tulis. We're here at Nooga Radio, and I wanted to just give you an insight there. That's Lori works at the Panera Bread Store. By the way, I'm at Panera every Friday morning. If you, my listener, want to join me, you can. It's for Panera Posse, and Panera Posse has been around for some time. It is some homeschool dads, and we all have children at home, and we're home educators. We believe in the free market and education, and we're kind of do-it-yourselfers. And there are engineers and others. We've had lawyers take part in our group, and sometimes candidates for high office come nosing in, wanting to chat with us and share a bagel with us. Though we're very unpretentious and very uninfluential, common people at Panera Posse, with the goal of rounding up the bad guys and putting the money back in the bank. And as I like to say to prospective visitors to our little gathering, the money is specie. And just ask me what that is, and I'll tell you. It's a kind of one of the economic mysteries that we are occasionally unfolding here on the David Tulis program. And so do feel free to join me. I'm there almost every Friday morning, with rare exceptions. It's at the Hickson Bread Store, the Hickson Panera Bread Store, and I'm there at 6:30 sharp. And we have Sam Spade, one of our writers, is there, and libertarian market defender, and publisher of a fine novel, and often on sending me things to read from Zero Hedge, Tyler Durden and Zero Hedge, and other things. Also, the man who oversees the Bitcoin meetup group. And if you've been following Bitcoin, you know it has soared up to astronomical heights just recently in the parabolic curve that happens before the crash. Right, that's you see those curves, virtually vertical lines up in valuation vis-a-vis the paper dollar, and so expect a rough and tumble ride ahead in that market. I have a son who's a 23-year-old UTC graduate who has a very high-end computer security job, he says he has a Bitcoin or two, and as an investment, And I just kind of look at him wisely, say, okay, well, just watch out. You're investing in a currency that has no reference. It's a pronoun without a reference. So you've got a problem. You've got a problem there. Well, this is David Tulis, and I want you to know that we here at Nooga Radio, we take risks. We are a risk-taking multimedia platform. I'm the editor of Nooganomics.com, and today there's a story I want you to read at Nooganomics.com, our chief sponsor, and that is about the war on the First Amendment. That is to say, the war on free speech, and that the war against free speech is being enhanced by the continuing military attitude, the militarized attitude of policing. Look at Charlottesville. Look at all the roundup of protesters prior to the most recent fracas in Charlottesville. There was a very abusive police control of the situation. We don't want police control. We want people control here in Chattanooga and elsewhere. The essay is by John Whitehead, a constitutional attorney who lives in Charlottesville and runs the Rutherford Institute. And he's been warning a long time about the use of tanks and pilotless and drones and machine guns and armor-penetrating 50 caliber Barrett rifles that sheriff's deputies and police departments have. They don't need. They're not at war. We are not at war. In fact, there have been 24 Americans killed by terrorists in the past decade, according to PolitiFact.com in a anti-gun analysis. But there have been killed by police thus far this year more than 800 people, and last year nearly 1,200 men and women in the United States slain by police. Now, we have great fear of terrorism, and yet I think the fear that we should have it should be directed elsewhere, and that would be to the state itself and to all the apparatuses, all the nomenclature, all the ideas that are the state, the self-existent state, not dependent on God, rejecting God's laws almost universally, and tyrannizing over the people. Just read Nooganomics.com today and see some of the details about who is getting what. Why do small towns have to have 20-ton mine-resistant ambush protected vehicles? Right, the MRAP. Why do they need to have that for making arrests with of people who are committing TennCare fraud? Is that why we have these machinery? This machinery. It's through the 1033 program, and this week, Attorney General Jeff Sessions, in a speech before the FOPS in Nashville, the Fraternal Order of Police event in Nashville, said we're going to resume that program, and we're going to continue upgrading the military capability of police and sheriff's departments. This is going in the wrong direction. And the analysis that I put out yesterday at Nooganomics.com is that this is perhaps David Roddy, the police chief's first temptation. His first temptation as the chief is drawing on his own background as a SWAT officer, a special weapons and tactics officer. SWAT, again, is the military appearance, the military method and technology of police departments. And here now he's going to be given open access, again, to subsidized military equipment. Do we need a military force occupying the city with 500 troops? That is the number of officers. 500, it's 500 now, with a surveillance system, a warfare mentality. Is that what Andy Burke wants? Now, I say that probably it's not. And I say that because Andy Burke has been thinking about Ferguson, Missouri, and the riots there in 2014, the death of an innocent man, and all that happened against the people of this country rising against occupation by militarized police. And Andy Burke has had, it seems to be, a change of heart as we are, if we are to believe his presentation at the event that named David Roddy as the chief of police. And there he was highlighting the courageous work of Jeffrey Abbott, an officer who could have killed the drunken man with the smoking pistol, but whom he didn't kill. In fact, he treated him to drop the weapon, meaning he treated. To treat is the verb for treaty, right? A treaty is negotiation, and that's what Officer Abbott did. He treated with the man, calmed him down, and disarmed him, and did not slay him. And that the slaying of people like that who are having episodes is all too common. 25% of the people in Hamilton County Jail have mental problems, right? They cannot function properly. Their mental problems, as they're called, are perhaps theological problems, they're religious problems, but they nonetheless don't function properly. And they have been put into police custody. And many of them, though, on the outside, have episodes that invite the death sentence at the hand of officers. And officers who are equipped with rifles and grenade launchers and armor plate and the like, they are much less likely to treat as Jeffrey Abbott did with the armed, angry, and drunken citizen who needs just to go to bed. He needs just to go to bed, not to go into the grave. And so Chief Roddy is under some claim by the mayor whom he serves on this point to develop more reform ideas in the department that shift from killing and maiming and tasing and beating and clubbing and gassing to discussion, right? To talking down the person who needs to be convinced that he's a threat to himself, he's a threat to other people, he may injure someone, he may be injured, and thereby let us see if we can get you some counseling, sir, and not think that we have to solve this encounter in 5 minutes, which is how people get shot dead. We have to solve it now. We don't have time. We have drawn lines in the sand, and we are going to affect the peace. But the cost across the country has been dead Americans, men and women, many disproportionately black. That is to say, continuing the old system, if you will, which is much more peaceful in the old South, much more peaceful, much more accepting of black men then than now. And I think we need to consider the mayor's ideas in this direction and to say no to the 1033 program. No, we've had enough 1033. We have enough firepower. We need now lip power. We need tongue power. We need conversation power. We need to have effectively the use of local economy. Local economy has in view the armed citizen. It has in view the responsible man with the pistol under his jacket, the responsible woman with the 380 in her purse. That is where we have our safety. It's not in expertise. It's not in specialists where firepower is rare. Firepower should be common, and the words that officers have to treat with someone who's having a bad day or someone who, in fact, is a criminal, right, who needs to be brought to bar. Can we arrest him and try him apart from the extrajudicial death sentence that is so common in our country and even common here? Even here, go to the Concerned Citizens for Justice website, and you'll see a list of black men slain by the police. I have not read that, but it's a copyrighted document that has a long list, starting back with Wadey Suttles back in the 1980s. Men slain in mysterious and bizarre circumstances by the police in jails and in the streets. This is David Tulis. Do tune in every day here at 9 o'clock, and make sure you subscribe to Nooganomics.com and like us on Facebook at Nooga Radio. Like me, David Tulis, like Nooga Radio, and that is on Facebook. Just click the like button and improve my standing with the good people at Google and Facebook. David Tulis, thanks for joining us.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader, Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.